She goes, do you guys do lawn care? I looked at her and said, no. She looked at me and she said, why not? I'm always challenged now by that question, why not? It now represents over 30% of the revenue we produce every year. Think about what is your next why not? It can really change your business dramatically.
Tim, welcome to the show.
Thank you, guys. Glad to be here.
Dude, I'm super excited to have you have such an interesting story diving into your LinkedIn and just on the World Wide Web. There's so much to talk about. It's going to be a fun show. I think a lot of the listeners are going to get a lot out of this episode. Before we get into business, leadership, and everything you've built so far, take us back to the beginning and tell us, how'd you end up spending 40 years in pest control?
You don't plan that one, right?
No.
Right. Yeah. So my story begins really in 1980, 18 years old, brother tells you got to go get a job, man. You can't live here for free. Right. So I was fortunate, my brother at the time was working in pest control, and I saw an ad in the newspaper, large corporation hiring, needing pest control technicians. And my brother was working there at the time. And one of the things he told me to not do is apply there. So what did I do? I went and applied there, so I walked in, and the manager looked and saw that I had the same last name, and he said, you can start tomorrow. So the most important thing you do when you go home that night and you're living with your brother is don't tell him that he has to take you to work the next day. Yeah. So, and that's kind of how it began, so, what was the amazing thing was when I went in and interviewed that day, I'll never forget it. I walked in there and I sat across from this manager's desk, and he had this plaque that was on the front of his desk, and it said, your survival is based upon my success. I'll never forget that, So that kind of stuck in my head that, it's pay to play there, right? So, as my path began at that moment in time, I started in this industry as a termite helper. And to define that, back in 1980, you basically, what you did was you tore up newspaper to put into the termite drill holes, right? Because you had to have something to help hold the patch of concrete that you'd be putting in there a little bit later on, right? So my job was sweeping up concrete dust, plugging holes, and doing the grunt work. But, that's what you did. You came in at that level, and, I was very fortunate to work for an organization that you could grow, so I went into each different service level within the organization, from termite control into pest control, and then you went into different levels within that organization, from residential to commercial. Then I went into sales, then went into other different types of roles within service management, branch management, just continued to move up, but the most amazing thing was being able to, provide for my family. I was there for 1 year and then was able to meet my wife that has been a blessing to me for well over 40 plus years, it's true what they say, behind every great man is a better woman, and that's for the fact, right? So the great thing about this industry is that, with you staying and putting your heart and soul into it, you're gonna reap the rewards. So, and that's been true for me. So, I kind of marched forward, was with that organization for well over 30 years. Very blessed to be there, and it did well for me. It taught me everything that I knew. That would be my tip. My first tip today would be, whatever service industry you're in, if you can get connected to an organization and learn the talents or learn the trade, that would be really wise to do. Master it. Get good at it before you decide that you're going to jump off in it on your own. But in 2010, I decided that I retired out and decided in 2010 that I wanted to start my own company, and I did.
What was the deciding factor there? You spent 30 years of your professional career with this organization. Why not just kind of see it to the end? What kind of raised that eyebrow for you to say, hey, I'm going to go, try this on my own?
Yeah, I think it's the competitive desire in your heart, man. I think you hit every plateau that you can, and you see that at some point you're hitting the ceiling. What's next, And for me, I felt that I had done that I had gotten to that mark, and I just really wanted to challenge myself to the next level. What could I do next? What could I do on my own, And for me, the secret in my sauce at my company is I took what that organization did well, and unfortunately what they maybe not couldn't do well, and I kind of blended the two, and that's what really has made us successful today as an organization.
Do you think because it was a corporate style operated business that there are limitations as to what they can do well versus what an independent business that you decided to start on your own in Pied Piper could offer?
Yeah, I think it was the pivot, being able to pivot, being able to do things quickly. As organizations, as they are so large, it's that top-down effect. I can make that decision today and get it done tomorrow. And sometimes that time lapse is too much. For sure.
What was that mindset like, being with a company for 30 years and saying, you know what, I'm gonna step away from this and start my own business? I mean, it's not easy, and it could be scary.
Yeah. Not only did I step away from it, but I decided to move away from it. I moved from where I was living at the time and moved from Texas to Oklahoma. I moved completely away as well. So I just felt that I wanted to challenge myself even more, so I moved to a completely new area, boots on the ground, went door to door. It wasn't anything of relief because I wasn't running from anything or going away from anything I didn't like. It was the fact of challenge, what's next.
I think that makes a lot of sense. I mean, coming from, there's guys that spend 30 years of their career and they're technicians, right? They stay in that role. Tim, it sounds like you wore a lot of hats all on the way up.
Sure.
What was your last position with this business?
Yeah, so, I was able to be at a corporate level, and I was in the Six Sigma department at that time, and it was in operations and doing process improvement. And then once my point in time had came to an end, I went back into a field level role. So I was in operations at a field level in a district area. So, I was in field operations on a daily basis. So I was touching people's lives every day, right? So, my hands were in it every day, right? So I was very familiar with what was required. So I wasn't disconnected, and I think it's easier to step back into ownership or not step into, but go into ownership when your hands are in it, right? So it was a pretty easy transition for me.
What was your favorite role throughout your 30 years?
I truly enjoyed management. I truly enjoyed working with people every day. When you can hire a sales representative and bring them in and teach them the trade, and then they can turn around and provide for their family, or bring a technician in and teach them the trade, and they can provide for their family. You can just watch them excel on a regular basis. I think that's the dynamics behind any type of role when you're in leadership role, when you can see people make it and they really do well for their family. I think it's really cool when you can look at an employee's application and see what kind of income they've made over time, and then compare their W-2 a few years later and see they've made double or 3 times the amount of money they've ever made in their life. I think that's truly success, man, when you can do that. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, that's the goal, right? You want everyone to kind of grow with the company, right?
Right on. Yeah, for sure.
So 2010, you started this company called Pied Piper. Pest and lawn, or was it just pest?
Just pest. Yeah, we just pest, because the organization I came from, that was primarily all we did was pest control and termite control.
One truck, and did you man that truck? Did you hire someone right away? How did that look?
Yeah, so, you got to be conservative when you go in business for yourself, and the first truck that I purchased, I went out and bought a used leased vehicle, because leased vehicles are maintained well, and I knew that. So I went and bought a leased vehicle from a leased used car or leased dealership, and I actually bought a competitor's leased vehicle from a pest control leased vehicle entity. So it's kind of cool. It kind of gave me instant credibility because I looked like a large commercial pest control entity. So that kind of gave me the kind of the punch in the arm to get started. Saved a lot of money by doing that. And it somewhat was a little bit outfitted on the inside too. So that kind of gave me a little bit of speed. So that was the first stop. So it was just me, boots on the ground, going out and putting into play what I had known for 30 plus years.
And you didn't do door to door?
I did door to door.
Oh, you did door to door.
I did door to door, yeah. It was an amazing thing is when I came to town, I went across the street to the post office to gather up some mail. And then the first customer actually saw my truck in front of the post office. And she said, I see you do pest control. I said, yes, I do. She said, I have a restaurant here in town. Would you mind coming over and giving me a quote? So that was the first customer that I gained was at the post office. And she saw my vehicle. So I didn't even knock that door yet. So it was pretty neat.
Is that a big part of your growth, door to door? Is that just what you happen to do to kind of jumpstart the business a little bit?
Yeah, I jump-started it by doing it door to door. But my key for me was I was capable of doing both commercial and residential. So I was able to bridge both sides of the street. Yeah. So that really got me started. And also being able to do termite control too. So that really helped me kind of do three sides of that, residential, commercial, and termite control. So it really got me going fast.
Did you have any experience in, starting up different branches in different locations with this other company or no?
Yeah. So early on we would seed an area. We would take a salesman and move him to an area and have him grow an area. But then, going into the 90s, it was more acquisition at that point in time. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that did not happen much after that. It was more through acquisition.
But it seems like as if you had a solid plan. Now, 2010, what was your goal to kind of like from 2010, let's say, the first 3 years, what was your vision like?
My goal was to generate $300 a day in revenue.
Okay.
Yeah, that seems kind of funny now to think of that now. $300 a day, right?
So it was more you were doing this just kind of like not to scale, but just to kind of like to kind of have a route.
Sure, yeah. It was just, right. Yeah, it was just to prove to myself that it could be done, right? And I think when you can, what's next, right? What's next, right? So when you get beyond what you're capable of doing, then the next question is what do you want to do next? Because once you hire your first employee, things change, right? Things change dramatically. As you guys would know, things change dramatically once a new employee or that employee comes on board. Things change, rules change. Your productivity has to change, and things just do change.
So how long was it until you hired your first employee?
9 months. Yeah, it's 9 months till that came on board. Yeah.
And where are you at now?
We averagely will bring on 1.5 to 2 people a year. Yeah.
Okay. Because Pied Piper is a franchise model. You have Pied Pipers all over. What was your area?
Well, yeah. So to kind of go backwards a little bit, I'll just give you a little insight. Is about here's lesson number 1. I will say is about 4.5, 5 years into this model, is that I realized that if I was going to scale and go elsewhere, is the name Pied Piper was not a trademark name. There were other Pied Pipers that were out in the United States, and there still are. So it was very important for us to protect the name. And what I had to do is I had to have Pied Piper trademarked under a subcategory in under moisture control and foundation ventilation. So it was federally registered under a subcategory. And there was another Pied Piper that had the categories that I needed in termite control and pest control and all the other categories that I was operating in. So long story short, that individual failed to renew those categories. Since I had categories below that, my hope was to be able to acquire the other federal registrations above it. Now, what was interesting is you have 6 months beyond that to renew. Once it expires, you can still have 6 more months. Well, long story short, those 6 months went by and he still failed to renew. So I have a very good trademark patent attorney that was able to grab that at that point in time. And so we obtained the federal registration for the name Pied Piper, and of course we have that today. So when you say franchise model, we have moved into a franchise model as of 2026 to be able to offer franchise opportunities as we move ahead in the model we have now.
So any business, pest control business that's doing business under that Pied Piper name, do they now have to change their name? What does that look like for them?
No, I giving consideration to that, right? There's Pied Piper companies that have been out there since the 40s. There's in California, there's one, right? I have no intent to bridge that or cross that fence. I mean, that's nothing. I think the important thing is that they've been in operations, we're in operations. I think everybody can live compatible. We can work across the street. We can work across the border. I mean, that's the intent. I look at it as an opportunity for my current employees, right? Everyone in my organization know that if they want to go out and start a franchise within the company, they can. We actually give a reduced franchise fee to current employees. So based on tenure, the longer that they're here, the more of that fee is reduced for them. It can be as much as 50% reduction in the franchise fee based on tenure. So, what's amazing about that concept is, instead of looking at an employee as a potential competitor, you can now look at them as a potential partner instead of that. But I will say this, I'll go back to what I was alluding to, is that in your business, you need to protect your brand. And that was the first mistake I made, is I didn't research in the beginning, was that name already being protected in some way? I should have done that. So that would be my first tip today, would be protect your name if you haven't already, and protect it at a state level, protect it at a federal level, or look into it. If you're thinking about starting a business, research the name you're thinking about and see if it's already been protected in some way.
I got a question. This is
Sure.
gonna sound naive, but what's a Pied Piper? Oh, come on. You don't know that?
Yeah.
It's based, wait, let me see if I
There
can
you
get
go.
this right.
Go for it, buddy. Go for it. Yeah, go for it.
A small town in Germany had a
1547. Go for it. Yeah.
had a rat infestation, and they hired somebody, and that person rid them of all the rats. But the mayor of the town never paid him.
You
And
got
he
it.
came back and he kidnapped all the children or something like that.
Yeah.
Right?
There you go.
Somewhat
That's exactly
accurate?
correct.
Okay.
That's correct. Yeah. So the phrase "pay the piper," you've heard that one, right?
Yes.
There you go. That's where that comes from. It's "pay the piper."
All right.
That's correct. Yeah.
Cool. So 2026, do you have any units out right now?
Yeah. We just started actively marketing for that. What's unique in the franchise space is you're going to need about 100 plus active leads before you can probably net one qualified prospect out of that. So that's the goal, is to fill the funnel with active leads to see where that's at. So we've just begun the process this year.
I'd like where you're going, where your head's at with, offering employees piece of the pie in terms of like having them have their own franchise. I noticed a couple other operators around the country from our conversations are doing something similar to that. I think it's a pretty interesting model. I think in our industry, what we have a lot happen is technicians come in, they operate, they work with you, and then they're like, they get bitter or whatever, and they want to go do their own, and they just leave.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, you could have some kind of partnership with them and kind of help them along the way, or that's an option, because not every technician is going to want to be their boss. A lot of people just want like the trade and they just want to be a technician, but there's others that they feel like there's more opportunity for them, and this could be that opportunity that may bridge that gap.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. The other piece of this pie is you got to go further upstream. A lot of times it's helping them form a business, an LLC. I mean, there's a lot of work upstream before you even get to how do you kill bugs.
Right.
There's a lot of work.
And how big is Pied Piper?
As far as an employee wise?
Yeah.
We have, what's unique is like where I'm located. We are in a county of roughly 19,000 people, and we employ in this area right at 14 employees in this area. And then we have another location that's in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. It's to the west of Fort Worth. It's in Azle. Dallas-Fort Worth, right at about 8.4 million people. And I think we have right up to nine employees in that area.
So it sounds as if you're growing about 250 to 500K a year based off of what you said.
Yeah. What's unique about it is the combination. So what's the difference in our franchise than anyone else? I guess that would be another key question in our business, is that doing pest control, termite control, lawn care collectively, right? A lot of franchises are singular or silo effect. They do pest only or mosquito only or lawn only or whatever. We have all of that under one. Now, would a franchisee do all of those? At one time, maybe not, but down the stream, they would be able to do that, right? So that's probably the advantage that we have over most.
Franchising it's a different model, it's a different concept,
For sure.
it's a different type of business. So
For
I applaud you for again taking challenging yourself. This is probably a whole nother challenge, which is great. Is there a franchise that you look at to help model what you're trying to do? Because this is one thing I like to I'll walk into like a Chipotle or Chick-fil-A and it's food, it's a different industry, right? But I look at how simple they've made things in order for their employees to be successful, right? I look at pool companies and I don't think they've done this yet, but like a training manual where it's like color coordinated, right? And like it's just like easy and simple for the technicians to be trained on how to perform their duties the right way. Because you think about pest control and you think about lawn care, there's a lot you can mess up when you're mixing chemicals and you're applying pesticides, herbicides to people's lawns, and things could go bad quickly. So back to my question, is there a franchise or a larger company that you're trying to model or pull from and want to try and replicate within your franchise? No.
Not really. No.
Okay.
I think systems, the systems that are out there, whether it be routing systems or accounting systems, are all standalones, right? So I think we have some very good solid systems for that. The protocols we follow in service are internal and they're pretty good. So not really.
That was a long-winded question.
Yeah.
So you mentioned you were with corporate. Now you have your own business. What are some things that corporate has gotten wrong and that Pied Piper and Tim Whitt is doing now?
Well, I think over time I don't want to say it like this, but when you say value of people, that's really a bad way of saying it. But I think it's not measured correctly, and fairly. What I can do now is I can hire people based on their true character, right? I hire based on character, not what they're going to bring to the table. You can read a resume or you can read whatever you want, but when I can do an interview today, I actually can hire someone based upon their character and what I think they're going to bring to the team, and then we can find job tasks or whatever to build around them.
And how do you do that in a meeting when you at that first interview?
Well, I don't think it's that first one. I think you're going to have a few meetings with them. We do disc profiling and a few things to kind of get us started on the right foot. I make reference to it about looking at social media. It's unfortunate that people do a lot of things on social media that's positive and negative. So we really investigate that pretty well on people. I live in a smaller community, so sometimes smaller communities, you do get to know people fairly well there as well. So there's a drawback to smaller communities as well. I mean, you don't have a large pool of people to pull from, but it takes work, man. It takes a lot of work. So you're going to have to constantly recruit, but I wholeheartedly believe everybody wants to be a part of a great team. We have people that apply at our company, and one of the questions we ask, on the application is, why do you want to work here? Why do you want to be here? Why do you want to join the team? And I cannot tell you how many times the people will place that I've heard it's a great place to work. Now I honestly believe it's a true statement. I'm sure it could be some fluff, but we have a good reputation. And I think that word is out there. And if you have a good company and it's respected in the community, people want to be a part of that.
So it sounds as if you really respect your employees and you have an awesome work culture.
Yeah, for sure.
So for the audience, Tim Whitt, corporate guy, started Pied Piper. 2026 now is going to start franchising. But another really cool, interesting thing, he's an author of a really interesting book as well, Infested, right? That's the title. And Tim, tell us a little bit about Infested and what this book entails.
Yeah, well, thank you. What's interesting about this book is, I'll kind of start it off this way. It's about, I guess a good way to put it is, sometimes we'll look at a business like it being a machine, produces profit, produces revenue, whatever. But It's more like an aquarium. The culture's the water. And if the water's not right, the culture's not going to be right. And one of the things that I was able to do for many years in the culture in the corporate world was deal with many employee issues, many employee problems, and I dealt with a lot of positive things as well. But what was interesting is the correlation, and I'll get to it in a second, but the correlation of dealing with employee behavior problems, and that's what I want to speak about, is the behavior. I'm not saying today that employees are pests. I wouldn't say that. But the behavior, there's a correlation between the behavior of employees and the way that insects' behavior are kind of like related, the metaphorical relationship. And that's where we're going with this. And so as I kind of started going down this road, it became kind of interesting how the behavior of employees, bad behavior and the way that insects will do things kind of like tie together. So that's kind of how I've kind of built this. So
that's interesting. You're going to give us... Now, is the whole book like that? I mean, how many metaphors can you actually come up with?
Well, there's quite a few there, my friend. You can actually go a little bit further, and if you wanted to, you could tie this into relationships in some way. So I'll warn you of that now. Be careful how you refer to folks later on in this, okay? I'm just warning you.
Yeah, we're going to be calling them like cockroaches.
Yeah, be careful.
Termites.
Be careful with that. Well, yeah, it's interesting. But, the way that I kind of looked at it was, if you look at it from, I put it really together in four areas, and I'll kind of describe the four areas, and we'll jump off into them. But the first one is, and you're going to think of the insects to some degree when I mention them. But first one's bloodsuckers, right? I mean, these are like a vampire or a dementor. These are people that like to drain the life out of people and organizations, right? And I mean, they do. I mean, there's a lot of folks that are out there that do that, right? The next one is raiders, and these are bandits and burglars. These are people that will basically take from the company, without giving anything back. That's just what they do, right? They just out to get what they can get. This is one that happens all too often, and it's saboteurs, right? Thugs or hooligans, right? That's another way to look at them, right? It's how the society looks at them. These people just are destroyers of the peace. They basically undermine the infrastructure of a company or of a building, right? The next one is assailants. These can be predators, and these people basically are going to attack the heart of an organization, okay? So, unfortunately, we're not talking about anything positive today.
Yeah, I was going to ask you.
I'm going to rip the rug out for a minute. We're going to rip the rug off. We're going to take the Band-Aids off for a minute, okay? This is not...
I like this approach. This is great.
This is not going to be a good, touchy-feely moment. It's unfortunately, but I guess we can let's put the spin on it in what we do every day, right? In pest control. How many calls do you get where a customer says, "Hey, Jeremy, I'd like for you to come spray my house for nothing. I don't have any problems. I just want to give you money," and that's it. That doesn't happen. People call you and say, "I got something crawling up. Something's in my house. I got a problem. And this is what we're dealing with here is problems. These are behavior problems. These things happen on a regular basis. So that's kind of how we're going to kind of look at this, right? When you look at bloodsuckers, right? If you look at bed bugs for an example, we know their biology, we know their habitats, we know what they do, right? And I don't really want to dive off too deep into that one because I think we all know that they take blood, right? They're out for their own self-worth. The thing that I think we need to remember is they take a little bit of blood over a long period of time, right? Think about that for a second. Taking a little bit of something over a long period of time.
It sounds like a technician slowing down or not like...
Yeah, milking the clock.
Milking the clock, yeah.
Milking the clock. I got one for you. I had a vendor that was overcharging me on products. And I had an admin, unfortunately, I had an admin person that didn't catch it for over a year. So what I mean by that is I had an established pricing guide that he had given me, but they were billing me at a different rate. So not only can this not only be, I don't want to say an employee, but it can be a vendor that could be doing this to you.
Someone taking products, weekly.
Yeah. So, the other thing is too is that a bed bug will take things from you or take blood from you. They'll numb you up take it from you with no excuse. Just take it. You know, you ever confront someone, confront an employee, and they don't have an excuse for what they've done. Just look at you and just don't have anything to say. Yeah. I remember one time in the corporate world where we had an admin person that was taking a lead would come in, and she would take this lead, and she was giving leads to a friend of hers that was a competitor.
Wow.
Yeah. And she was also referring cancellations to her friend that was a competitor. So a customer would leave, she would give them to her friend, right?
That adds up.
She was doing this over a long period of time, right? And the only way that she was caught was a technician had reported her to the office that this was happening because he was losing clients, okay? So, you know, when you think about what happens over time, the slow drain over time, people inserting themselves on you and taking from you over time. Here we go, right?
So does this book, you know, do you go into, all right, now, how do we remedy these type of insects or the pest control that we're going to utilize to fix these problems or no?
Yeah, I wish I had a product selection choice for you, but all I will say is, what I do in the book is I don't have a product selection choice for you. I don't say follow the label. What I say is coach up or coach out. That's what I say for you. If that's your choice, you know, I don't go down that line too far. But what I'm trying to do for our industry, for any small business owner, and this book is written for small business owner, to any service business, this will help you, is to get your attention, to help fly the flag, to tap you on the shoulder, to get your attention, to say, hey, if this is happening, wake up. Or if it does happen, these are the signs that you need to be watching for. And there are a lot of things in here that will go after page after page after page that it will give you a different perspective. I guess when I was putting this together is how many different ways can we talk about the same problem that we deal with in business? This is just another perspective of how to look at the same problem that we deal with every day, but I hope that it shares light for our industry specifically to help. The other reason that I did this, there's two reasons that I wrote this book. One is, well, our industry is not spoken about enough. There are so many talented people in our industry, and I would challenge everyone that's listening to this podcast to get out and get a pen and write something. There are so many talented people, you know, and we need to be represented more than we are today. The second thing is that the reason that I wrote this is that I'm still in the game, right? I'm in this game every day, right? It's fresh in my heart. I can speak this. One day I will probably retire. I don't want to wait 5 years after I'm out of the game and write something. I know I could, but will it still be fresh in my heart? Will it still be fresh on the end of that pen, right? So that's why I did it today, right? So
is this something you've wanted to do for a while, is write a book?
Yeah. I think we all had that moment a few years ago when we were all in our homes for that long period of time and we couldn't go anywhere, right? And wearing masks and all of that, right?
This is a really cool concept, Tim. I'm really liking the way you characterize like the different types of insects. And do you talk about like the sweet insects, like a honeybee or a butterfly?
Yeah. Well, I'll share this one with you. Is I talk about honeybees, and I talk about the fact that, you know, protect your bees, right? We all know we got to protect our bees, right? The label says protect bees, right? We all know that, right? But let's look at it differently though. Is that the workers? Those bees are our workers, right? They go out every day, and they go out and they produce every day, and they come back and they bring that profitability back every day. And I, as the beekeeper, have a responsibility to make sure that I'm only pulling off so much of that honey, right? So I got to leave so much of that honey left for those bees, right? If I don't and I strip that hive, what's going to happen? It's going to kill the hive, and that business is going to fail. It's my fault, right?
I really like
exactly right.
You should illustrate a children's book also.
Yeah, there you go.
Very cool.
There you go. The other thing too is I got to keep moths out of that hive, right? And that could be potentially the bad hires, you know, the people that I'm letting in that door, you know. So So there's numerous pages after pages in here about different correlations of insects, different other things that are in here to just go after, as I mentioned, those categories of insects that are in there in different ways.
What's it like to write a book? What's the process behind writing a book?
Yeah, number one, it's food for thought. You need to think about what you're trying to lay out. There's layers of people that can help with that. Don't allow your inability. Some people think, oh, I'm not smart enough, but there's ghostwriters that can really help you. I would encourage anyone that has always had the passion or the desire to do it. There's many people out there that can help you do this, and there's publishers that can help produce it. It does take time. It takes a commitment. I'm at a point in my life where I can do this. I don't have a lot of obligations that can take me away from time to do that. So that's why it was easy for me to do, for sure.
So we can find your book on Amazon. Where can we find the book Infested?
Yeah. Infested, you can find it on Amazon, and they're in all different versions of it, from ebook to paperback to Audible to all of that. Plus timwitt.com, you can catch it on there as well.
So you'll send me a signed copy?
I'll do it, brother.
Yeah, I won't. It's going to be on my coffee table.
For sure.
It's something I want to get into right away. So, Tim, again, you're really impressive between writing the book, spending 30 years in corporate and then having your own business. And there's another layer. There's another piece. You coach and help operators in all service-based industries, or?
Sure. Yeah.
What's that look like?
Yeah, so I've got several. I work with several competitors, even in my local market. That need help. Not everybody stands on the same 2 feet. And pick up the phone, call me. I'll be happy to help them out. Just last week I helped a guy put together an AIB proposal for an account he's working on. But that's what this is all about, right? It's one person helping the other. Anything that I can do to help assist someone to make the next step. That's what this is about. That's what happened to me, right? Along my way, I had many mentors that helped me, right? And I think that in our industry that we all can help each other. We can mentor each other, help each other get to the next level. We're not competitors. We're all doing the same thing, right? And we're just charging different prices. And that's kind of how I look at this, right?
You have a curriculum that you put together, or do you just meet like the owners where they're at right at that moment?
Yeah, I meet with them. I discuss what their needs are. We kind of build out, what the priority should be. We look at a matrix of, what's the fastest wins that we can gain. There's a couple pieces to this, right? Is where are they at in their current business build? What are they trying to do? Are they getting to a point where they're wanting to go through more growth, or are they wanting to look at maybe succession planning and stepping out? Where are they at in that process, right? So that's kind of where I try to help them figure out what would be next. Sometimes even in that latter part, in that succession planning, as you guys would know, is that some people aren't prepared for that. They need to have some building out. Like an example, I recently spoke to a gentleman not too long ago, and he's just not in that place yet, and he it would not be wise for him to even think about it. He just does not have the documentation in place, and I actually provided him some of the documentation that I have for contracts and some other things that he needs to start working on. It would be very embarrassing for him.
Yeah, I mean, you'll be surprised how many pest control operators out there that have that same problem. We were talking a little bit prior to getting on, and one thing we spoke about was hit by a train rule, right? Like, what happens if you get hit by a bus? What's going to happen? What happens to the business? Who takes over the business, right? And that's something that you coach on as well.
For sure, yeah. So what do you do? What conversations have? Okay, there's steps, and this is what I usually will say to an owner is I'll say, okay, what steps have you taken to, number one, talk to your significant other in the event something happens to you, what is going to happen, right? You need to have the conversation with your wife or husband. What's going to happen? Secondly, if your family is involved, what do they need to know? Okay, because you need to have some type of estate or trust planned out if that's the case. Next, in your leadership team, what do they need to know if something happens to you or the both of you? Because like in my case, my wife and I traveled together. What happens if something happens to the both of us? What should my leadership team know? Who should they call in the event something happens, right? And is the business structured properly to where it can still function? How do they make payroll next Friday if something happens to me over the weekend? How does that work, right? So you've got to make sure those things are laid out in a way that it all makes sense, because unfortunately we have to plan for those things.
That sounds very familiar to Turner. We bought a pest control company halfway through our business journey, and in the company we bought, they were thriving probably 10 years prior to we took it all over. And unfortunately, the husband died of a heart attack. The wife took it over, but she had no idea how to operate it, and there was no plan. There's nothing in place. And it didn't do well until we bought it, and then it did well. But
you're right. And the other thing too, you're talking. One of the things going back to this book is that what is the negative effect on the value of a business with a bad performing company when it comes to this type of problem. Okay, I mean, if you have someone come in and look at a business, do you not think for one moment that they're going to feel the overall vibe of a business? And when you look at reviews on Google, don't you feel there's going to be a vibe when it talks about performance with people showing up late, didn't do the job correctly, so there is an effect on the value of the company from this topic.
Yeah,
okay.
Of course.
Just another thing to think about when you look at this. Okay, so just consider that as well.
So you help people prepare to go to market or to get to that next step.
Yeah, I'm not the guy to sit down with you and say, what is your company worth? I'm sure I have an idea in my head, but I'm not that guy. I'm not the guy to give you an evaluation. I'm the guy to say, look, if it was me, here's what I would fix internally when it comes to people and processes. I'm the guy to kind of help you clean up the plate. I'm the guy that was kind of look at the back end piece. I'm very analytical when it comes to the process side, documentation side, the people side, that deeper dive, into the business to kind of help you structure things and layer things out properly. That's kind of really where I kind of, look, all the time I was in operations and I had those audits, guys coming in to look. I got very good at preparing for those things. So I kind of, that's really what I'm really good at, the structure.
How many guys are you working with right now?
I've got 4 that I'm working with in this state that I'm in here.
Has it ever become I did some business coaching and it became a little overwhelming for me. I had about 8 guys I was working with, and I just felt like I really wanted these guys to do well and listen to my advice and help them get to where they wanted to get. And I couldn't make them do the work. I still work with about 3 guys, but I let the other ones go, and you would be repeating yourself over and over again. They would come back to the same the conversation, and you would have the same advice for them because they didn't do it. The things you asked them to do.
Right. Yeah. So my help is very well defined. I stay very well defined on what my task and responsibilities for them are, and I don't go outside of that scope of work.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I guess that's what's kind of helped me really do well for them.
Right.
I don't ask for more, and I don't give more, I guess.
Right.
Yeah, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it sounds like you just are a lot better at it than I was. A lot more experience.
Yeah, I guess if I say to them, do you need anything else? I'm not the waitress coming up to the table that says, do you need anything else? Because I don't want to add more calories to you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to keep you lean,
Right.
But if I see that you didn't get enough to eat, I'm going to bring you something else. Because if I look deep enough, I can see that you didn't get that. I know what you need. So I'm going to go bring it to you. I'm not asking you. I'm going to say, this is what you need.
You're really good at making analogies.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's great. I like that.
Thank you. Yeah. I want to tell you guys a really fast story. Okay, this is very important, and this is really probably the most dynamic thing that happened to me in business. About year 3 or 4, when I was starting my business, I was out servicing a lake home, and things were going good, really good. And this customer, beautiful house, this customer came up to me and she says, Tim, she goes, do you guys do lawn care? I looked at her and I was, pretty confident. I looked at her and said, no, we don't do lawn. She looked at me and she said, why not? And I looked back at her and I had no response. I didn't know what to say. And I just said, well, we just don't do that. And I left that house and I went out in the truck I put my equipment away, and I went in. I got done with the work and everything else. And I for that night, it bothered the heck out of me. I couldn't get it out of my head. My response to her was no. Her question was why not? And it bothered me for days after that. So it wasn't too long after that I started investigating it, looking into it, because you got to remember the corporation I came from, the corporate office. We didn't do lawn care. It was a mindset. It was just something I didn't do. We didn't do it, right? I looked into it, saw that it wasn't that really big of a deal to do, and we dove off into it, okay? It now represents over 30% of the revenue we produce every year, all right? So in the book, and what I'm going to say to you today is, how many times does a customer come to us and say something and we say no? And really, we need to ask ourselves, why not? Okay? Because the industry has put us in categories of what we do. And we need to really ask ourselves, why aren't we doing something else? Why don't we redefine the category instead of the industry defining it for us? The industry says what pest control is. We as owners should say what pest control is, not the industry, right? So, by the way, that I did go back to that home and sell her lawn care, and she still has it today. But I'm always challenged now by that question, why not? And that's in this book. It stimulates the question, why not? And that's what I would say to everyone is, what is your next why not? What are you thinking? Now, I'm not talking about going out and painting buildings pink, okay? Don't go do something crazy, right? But think about what is your next why not? Because it can really change your business dramatically.
You got me thinking right now. Why not?
There you go. Why not, man?
Good.
Why not?
Then what's up for you the next 3 years? Where do you see yourself in 3 years?
I want to add 1 to 2 franchises per year. And why 1 to 2 is because they can then have my full commitment, my full-time commitment to those. 1 to 2. 1 to 2 is about all I can pretty well do myself, full-time. Yeah, investment with that franchisee. Yeah, so that would give me 6 to 8, maybe in that period of time, if I did, 1 to 2 over the course of 3 to 4 years. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. Again, coming from your coaching background, all the experience that you have, it just makes perfect sense. And then what's the end goal? What do you want to do?
I don't know. I think the name, the name, by the way, for some of us know what the name's about. Some of us don't, but hopefully that will change. I think if we can just continue to scale, I would love to see it just a path of progression for others. I've done what I can do. I think it's, at the end of the day, it's what you're going to be known for, not what you've done. Okay. I know what I've done. You can see what I've done on LinkedIn. But I want to be known for what I've done, and also what I'm known for, right? And it would be great to be able to see more, Pied Piper locations and more opportunity for the people that want to be a part of that, my employees and everything else.
I have a question. So, being in business and understanding that there's those bloodsuckers and mosquitoes, ticks, and bed bugs, and all other types of insects, that's for some people a reason just to kind of stop, right? Or to not continue to go on. How are you able just to kind of keep going for so many years and find the positive side of it?
Well, I think that if you're not moving with desire, it's not progress. If you're not moving with some reason, it's not progress. It's just movement, right? And I think that you're going to have a reason to do things in life, and everybody has some kind of reason they're doing something, but until you define what it is, what is it, And for me, it's always been the challenge, you can, I think what's interesting is you can work really hard in life to get to a certain point in your life, and you can get to the top of the mountain and then look down in the valley and go, I wished I was there again, because it was so hard to get here, but yet you miss the calmness of the valley. So I think that up and down is always a reward. I enjoy both, I guess. I enjoy the view from both.
That's great.
For sure. Yeah, for sure.
Love it. Pest World, do you go?
I'm there. Booked,
Dallas?
ready to rock and roll. Well, I better be in Dallas, It's
you
right
better
down
be
the
in
road.
Dallas.
Yeah.
That's right. Awesome. So we'll definitely get to meet in person. Yeah, it's going to be awesome. You should have a book signing.
Good, man. Let's do a book signing. That'd be great. Yeah, for sure.
Tim, dude, thanks so much for your time, man.
Thank you, guys.
Super impressive guy. I wish you all the best. I'm really looking forward to reading that book. Very interesting concept, and it's different. So
if you don't want to read it, check it on audiobook, man. Just listen to it when you're working out or something.
Who's you got? Tom Hanks? Who you got?
No, I got Scotty News is doing that one, man. He's pretty good. You'll enjoy his voice. It's pretty good. It's close to mine. So, by the way, if you ever write a book, do not do the audio portion yourself. So,
Yeah,
there are better people at doing that than me.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
I don't even listen to my own podcast because I don't hear my voice.
There you go. There you go. For sure.
Tim, awesome dude. Very
Thanks,
impressive. Guys, listeners, what do you have? TimWhitt.com. What's your website?
Tim Whitt, yeah. Tim, WHITT.com.
Go check him out, and congratulations, man. And I'm looking forward to meeting you down in the pest world.
Thanks, man.